Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better. Just know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. That's right. I'll give myself. Only you can make the change. I'll give myself. Shine your head at you. I'll give myself. Shine so bright. From darkness to light. Hey, 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 hey. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it won't seem way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The power of God will flow through you from way out.
Genesis, Detroit. Truth in the algorithm. Welcome to the live stream.
Yo, live stream junkie with the mic turned on, breaking down the matrix while the lights stay on. Politics, religion, yeah, we question every claim, while the media playing narratives and shifting every frame. Ancestors speaking through the wisdom of IFA, cosmic knowledge shining like a distant star. From Detroit to the world on a digital stage, dropping truth bombs every time I hit the page.
Welcome to the channel where the truth get deployed. Yeah.
DJ Genesis live from Detroit.
Breaking down the system, every lie gets destroyed. Yeah.
Tap in, subscribe, you rocking with the voice.
Yeah, welcome to the channel.
Yeah. Where the truth get deployed.
Yeah. DJ Genesis live from Detroit. Yeah.
Breaking down the system, every lie gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Tap in, subscribe, you rocking with the voice.
Yeah. Debates on fire, got the comments going crazy. Asking questions that the system can't face me. From ancient civilizations to the modern day lies, connecting dots that they hide from the public eye.
Knowledge of self, yeah, the ancestors guide. When the full moon rising for the spiritual tide.
This the place where the truth gets exposed.
Every live stream, another chapter unfolds.
To the channel. Yeah. Welcome to the channel where the
truth get deployed.
DJ Genesis live from Detroit. Welcome,
breaking down the system, every lie gets destroyed. Tap in, subscribe, you rocking with the voice.
DJ Genesis Detroit. Truth seekers unite, 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 unite.
All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are at it again. We're back at it again, and shouts out. So for those that have been waiting, we are finally here. We're ready to go, and let's get into it. So we have Baba Awo Falokun for Tunde here, and he is here to actually get into divination. He's going to break down the 16 IFA divination tools, okay? So without further ado, let's bring him up here. Whoa, second, Falokun, welcome. We had a little few technical difficulties, but we're here. Thank you. Unmute. Hold on. Unmute your mic. There we go. Yes. Now we can hear you. Let's get into it. Man, listen, we've been waiting on this. It's been a whole week. We was waiting on the update because, man, got so much positive out of that first live we did, you know.
Thank you.
So I'm so excited to bring, more information and everything. Shouts out.
Let me do, if you don't mind, let me do a formal greeting. Agbo Ato, blessing on long life. Akaba, welcome. Adupwe Ori Egun. We thank the ancestors for the wisdom. I've been doing a daily prayer anytime I do anything. Ire Lona Lafia Aye, asking for peace on earth. The violence going on now is not IFA, not acceptable. Holding the vision of peace is part of, I think, our deep spiritual obligation. Listen, I've been having I don't believe in worrying about negativity, but the negativity has been a little higher than normal directed towards my work. So I want to clarify a few things, if you don't mind. Can I do that? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So here's what I want to say. 38 years ago, I traveled to Nigeria and was initiated into IFA and Egbe Ifa Ogunte Ode Remo by Araba Woyade Alisanya, and Alisanya Woyade. And that was back before internet, if you can believe I'm that old. And at the time, people believed that IFA no longer existed in Africa. So I went there, and I've been blessed to make a total of 6 trips to Africa. And I have to say, not only is IFA alive and well in traditional Yoruba culture, the amount of knowledge and wisdom they have is overwhelming compared to what survived the Middle Crossing. Now, I get it. The Middle Crossing was just pure evil. Anything that survived at all is a blessing. We need to honor that, elevate that, acknowledge that, and preserve that. But it's also true that there's a lot that we can go to our elders in Africa and learn from and bring to our practice here in the diaspora. I don't believe in judging others or other people's practice. I will say that some of the more profound and astute and well-trained Awos that I've been blessed to meet in Africa don't speak English, and they don't have access to the internet. So we're still missing a lot of what I believe would help us move forward. Now, the reason I picked this particular topic recently is I got a big, I got a series of Facebook messages telling me that IFA only used 2 systems of divination, and that was in response to the fact that on my Egbe page, Egbe Iwa Pele Ifa Orisha community, somebody said that they used tarot deck as part of their divination set, in particular in communicating with their ancestors, and I think that's fine. And I said so, We speak to our ancestors in whatever language they understood. Even if you go to Africa, you can see ancestral shrines with Hindu spirits on it, with Christian spirits, with Muslim spirits. No one can tell you how to honor your ancestors. That's between you and them. And the notion that there's a right way to do that is simply silly. So let's stop with that arguing over nothing, and let's get down to the serious business of study. So in response to the statement that I'm a fraud and charlatan because I believe IFA has more than 2 methods of divination, the 2 methods that were referenced was Ikin Opele. Certainly we use those and we learn those. But be clear, there's a misconception of IFA as the high priest, which I think is heavily influenced by Catholicism and their structure of bishops and archbishops and cardinals and the Pope and all that. That's not a part of our faith. That's not a part of our tradition. That's a colonial imposition on what we believe and what we do. And I'm sorry, I just don't support it. So the point is that the main function of an IFA priest is that we have 2 primary functions. One, as diviners, we don't need to be able to fix everything. We need to be able to tell you who in the community can fix your particular problem. It's like triage in a hospital. You don't go into the emergency room, the doctor says you need brain surgery, and then starts doing brain surgery. That never happens, ever. The doctor you first encounter in the emergency room signs you into the hospital and calls the brain surgeon. Well, it's the same way in IFA. IFA teaches that any problem you fixed in your life is medicine for someone else. And we've kind of lost sight of that. People feel that if they're an Awo, they have to be able to fix everything. They're all knowing, all powerful. Their bows always work. None of that. Come on, give me a break. So the other thing I want to say is my experience in Africa And it's simply my experience. I'm not making it better or right. I'm saying that there are different ways to approach things. I have maybe once, and not even that, I have never seen divination done by one person in IFA ever. It's always a collective effort. It's generally with 6 to 20 people involved, and it's really rooted in the concept of collective prayer, which is profoundly transformative. And, much of what is called, and I'm quoting now because it's a mistranslation, much of what is called animal sacrifice is merely sanctification of what I would call kosher food to feed the people who are praying on your behalf. Now, there's some value in praying on food because we then ingest the power, but the whole purpose of a bow is to shift the resonance of our consciousness and be in a state of being which attracts the solution to our problem. Now, that's a long lecture that we'll have one day in the future. I want to say that I'm really, really thankful to IA for inviting me on their program. It's really a blessing. I'm always eager to talk to anybody who takes our faith seriously, who is actively engaged in serious study. So I am planning on doing 8 sessions with hopefully, and hopefully she'll have me, and hopefully we'll make this all happen.
Oh, definitely. We'll
hopefully we'll get through the technical challenges. I'm almost 80 years old, and if there's a way to break technology, I'll find it, believe me. But I'm moving through that with determination. That was kind of a self-ex, forgive me. I am no longer challenged by technical IT stuff, and we're going to be easily available. And the Spirit is really pushing me to make traditional IFA technology available to whoever wants it. And I think we if you want to do Lukumi, if you want to do Santeria, if you want to do Umbanda, if you want to do Candomblé, do it. Do it fully. Own it, be it, study it, share with others, and make it work. I'm simply sharing the wisdom that I was blessed to learn from a small village of 10,000 people in Ode Remo. I want you to think about this for a minute. There's 10,000 people in Ode Remo when I started going there. I think it's gotten a little bigger since then. But there were 70 Awos in the community. 40 of them were active in ritual work. And Odu Ifa, the academics say it's 1,500 years old. I say it's 10,000 years old. I also say that Odu Ifa is a form of ancient science I call paleoscience, which is based on plasma physics. Plasma physics is a very esoteric and sophisticated form of quantum physics, which very few people on the planet understand. I was blessed to study physics as a younger man and have some background in the subject. And I can tell you the physics that I read in Odu Ifa is more sophisticated than what I was taught about physics at Caltech, which is the foremost, which is probably the leading physics school in the world. It's the school where Einstein taught. And, they set the standard, so to speak. But I was also taught a lot of the things that I'm reading in Odu Ifa, which I have to say have been deliberately suppressed because they are really the keys to free energy, levitation, anti-gravitational travel, alchemy, and healing by resonance, all things which the few who control the many, I call them, want to keep suppressed so they can charge you for stuff that doesn't work. So that's my soapbox for that. But the point is we have such incredible wisdom that remains to be unlocked in Odu Ifa that we need to stop wasting time arguing over who does it correctly and stop judging other people. You can do Lukumi, you can do Santeria, you can do Candomblé, and I can do traditional. That is a right that's guaranteed to me by the U.S. Constitution. It's called freedom of religion. If I want to practice Ifa as it was done in ancient times in Africa, I have that right to make that choice. You can tell me I don't have that right. You can call me a fraud. You can say I don't understand what I'm doing. You can call me all kinds of names. Over 40 years of study, it's been a while since I've heard any new names, but I've heard the same criticism over and over and over again, the most common being that my initiation was invalid. Okay, so you would know.
Hold on, let's not even get to, he's a Caucasian, so how could he, this is an African thing, so how could the Caucasian be, let's get into that too, because
listen, I don't like to get into that, but I will. I can trace my ancestry back to Egypt, a very specific people that like name in Egypt in ancient times. If you look at a map, you will see that Egypt is in Africa, and that there was, in fact, a coalition between African Egyptians and my family that is from Eastern Europe, Transylvania in particular. If you go to the Egyptian shrine in Mount Sinai, you'll see it's half Sumerian and half Egyptian. Sumer is a culture that emerged out of Transylvania, and the Sumerian language is a dialect of Chalderesh, which is the 10,000-year-old language of the region around the Black Sea. So there's a connection there. It's a little hard for people to put it together because it's not taught in school. And yes, I don't look African, but I'm not sure that what you look like really is a valid correlation to what you know and what you understand. For whatever reasons, think I should belong or not, think I can understand or not, the good people in Ode Ramo had enough faith in me and my sincerity to do a lot of teaching, incredible amount of teaching. And my only agenda is to share what I learned from them. Now, we can argue that I understood it or didn't understand it or not presenting it accurately. That's fine. We can have those conversations. We can disagree and we can still be friends. But just to attack me and my character and who I am and who you think I am without any real conversation about the content of what I'm talking about, to me is just a waste of time. It really plays into the whole notion, if you don't agree with me, you're my enemy, and I'm going to make you agree with me by bullying you into, I get threats all the time. It's really tiresome. We can do better than that as a human species, I believe. So what's the value of being connected to Egypt in terms of Ifa? Yoruba language is 30% Coptic. That's the Egyptian language prior to Arabic, all right? The other 30% is Hebrew, which is actually Ge'ez, which is the liturgical language of Ethiopia. If you go to Egypt, every one of the temples there has an inscription at the entrance saying, "This temple faces the south in honor of our ancestors." If you go south of Egypt, what you do is run into Ethiopia. Egypt has 70 pyramids. Ethiopia has 700 pyramids. Clearly, the origins of African culture Egyptian culture in older African culture. Also, Nigeria, which has got a large number of different ethnic groups. One of those groups is called the Igbo people. And the Igbo people, thousands of years ago, built both stone pyramids and stupas, which is a spherical shaped meditation space that's very popular in India, but they were also popular in what we now call Nigeria. And so you might ask the question, well, how come I've never seen them? The reason I've never seen them is when the British colonized Nigeria, they went around to all the stone pyramids in Nigeria and blew them up with dynamite. And they won't even tell you where the remnants of those pyramids are located. It was a deliberate attempt to suppress an ancient form of wisdom. All right. So the last 30% of the Yoruba language is local African dialects, Kwa, among others. So my point is, you don't have a culture with 30% of the same language without there being some deep connection between those two cultures. So I maintain there's a deep connection between Ifa and Egyptian theology. I also believe that the oldest form of understanding what Ifa calls Odu Ifa comes from the Emerald Tablets. The Emerald Tablets are 16 metaphysical principles that are at the foundation of alchemy. Those principles, if you study them, are exactly the same as the principles of Odu. We went over those principles last time I spoke. You can go review that. You can look up the Emerald Tablets and you can find confirmation. You don't have to take my word for it. When you read through the Emerald Tablets, you'll say, oh, there's only 14 principles, not 16. No, listen, occult metaphysical folks like to hide things. So if you look at the 14 principles of the Emerald Tablets, you'll notice that the last two are double. So 14, 15, 16. There's 16 principles, exactly the same. Those principles are coded into the Kabbalah, which is the Jewish metaphysical tradition. They're based on the tree of life. The tree of life, you will say, well, it has 10 stations, not 8. No, the last 3 are 1. So it's 8 stations or 16. They're virtually identical. So the metaphysical principles in virtually every culture throughout the Middle East and Africa is based on what I believe to be an older pre-flood culture that we for sure don't have a lot of information about, but it influenced diverse cultures throughout the continent, and that to really understand who we are as a species, we have no choice but to go to Africa to listen to learn. Now, you can think that I shouldn't have the right to do that, and I certainly, that's your opinion. We cannot talk, we cannot pray together, and we don't have to interact, and we can still be friends as far as I'm concerned. But for me, studying Ifa is a way of honoring my Eastern European ancestors. Those ancestors have said so, and here's the final thing that I want to say about all that. My ancestors, in addition to being an Ifa priest, I'm initiated into the dragon tradition of the royal lineage of the dragon families of Transylvania, which is the oldest monarchy in Europe. My family name is Fenius, which in Hungarian means bringer of light. Bringer of light is the same as has the same function in Hungarian culture as Ifa does in Yoruba culture, and that the priestly responsibilities of my extended family was to sit in a circle around a stone above an underground waterway and say prayers into the stone, which were then taken into the water and spread throughout the earth to fertilize the land. All right. So on my second trip to Africa, my Baba, Ibaye, Araba, Adesanya Awoyade, he said, I want to show you something. So he drove me to Ile Ife, and there I saw 16 priests sitting in a circle around the stone, praying into the stone. The exact same thing that my ancestors did. The only difference is they were speaking Yoruba and my ancestors spoke Calderesh. So, we can talk about difference, but ultimately it's differences without a distinction. Our ancient ancestors, before we got so brainwashed and manipulated and taught to fight each other, before those days, people used their higher consciousness, their higher self, their critical thinking to study the world they lived in. And if they studied it correctly, there's no mystery or accident that they all came to the same conclusion, which is, in fact, what I believe they did. Now, most of the older traditions have been lost or inaccurately translated. Much of the work that I do is around language analysis. Ifa is based on, liturgical Ifa is based on creating metaphysical words by taking a sentence, removing the vowels, and shortening it into one word. It's called an elision. And when you figure out what the sentence is, it's a totally 100% accurate translation of the meaning of the concept. So, a man named Jonathan Crothers in about 1890 wrote the first English urban dictionary. He was an Episcopalian priest. He took all the African words and translated them based on biblical concepts that do not match the meaning of the words at all. So we've been indoctrinated and infused with false ideas that then color how we understand what we think we believe in and are in stark contradiction to the teachings of the prophet Arumi. I'll give but one example. I think you probably gave it last week, but it's such a clear example. There's a liturgical word called Ifa Ya Ballet, which is the word used to describe an Ogboni ritual in which men and women discuss gender differences. The word Ifa Ya Ballet, clearly from the Elysian Ifa, the Ifa Baba Yeye Ile, meaning the wisdom of the fathers and the mothers of earth. Okay, pretty clear. Anybody that speaks even rudimentary Yoruba would translate that phrase in that manner. But if you go to the dictionary, the original dictionary, I think the newer ones have been updated, but the original dictionary prepared by Crothers, the translation of Ifa Ya Ballet is the ascension of our Lord and Master Jesus Christ to sit at the right hand of God our Father. So when I read that in the dictionary, I knew that that wasn't correct. And it's all one word, Ifa Ya Ballet. And it's from the Elysian. I'll spell the words Ifa, IFA, Yeye, Yeye, Ifa Ya Ballet. Baba, B-A, and the new word I-L-E. So it's a fairly clear translation of that word. So having said all that as a prelude, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the different systems used. I want to be clear. There's different systems of divination. I'm not talking about divination tools. I'm not talking about interpretation. I'm talking about simply the divination methods that, as an Awo, in addition to being able to refer people to the appropriate elders to fix problems, we also are keepers of the faith. As an Awo, I wasn't chosen, I don't believe, because I'm better than anybody else or that any Awo is better than anyone else. I certainly never been consider myself a high priest, and nobody in Ode Ramel considers an Awo a high priest. They're priest among different priesthoods, and everybody has their personal function. So the main aptitude for being an Ifa priest in traditional Yoruba culture is having a good memory, because it's our job to be keepers of the faith and make sure the faith, as part of an oral tradition, gets passed on from generation to generation.
Can we talk about that good memory before we go on? Because when I actually brought this information to the table, a lot of people are like, so it's an oral tradition, there's nothing written down, so that invalidates it, right? And so I explained that it's in song format. And so the reason why it's able to be remembered is because it is sung in the song format. And just like you remember songs, I remember songs as Mary Had a Little Lamb. Right. I remember all these songs, the wheels on the bus go round and round since I was 5 years old. So if you understand that these people are taught these songs from a young age, could you kind of get into that?
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll get into that before we get into the what I call the nuts and bolts of today's conversation. Every year in Ode Ramel and throughout Nigeria on June 23rd, the Egbe Ifa meets in public and recites the entire corpus of Odu Ifa. Now, we think we have a lot written down. We don't even, the books we have on Odu Ifa is maybe 2 or 3 verses per Odu. In truth, in Africa, there's between 100, 200, and 300 verses per Odu. And each of those verses is memorized and recited in public. So this dispels a number of misconceptions, but let's start with the obvious one. If you're reciting the entire corpus of Odu, Odu explains why we do things, how we do things, how we do initiations, what's the metaphysical point. It explains healing. It explains our system of justice. It explains our system of protection. It explains our system of herbal medicine. It explains our system of using altered states of consciousness to heal. The point being that if you go to Ode Rainbow on June 23rd and you sit in the marketplace and listen to the corpus of Odu Ifa being recited, there are no secrets. There are no secrets, none. They're all spoken out loud. Anybody can come by and listen and learn. All right. And so the way the system works is this. The recitation of Odu on June 23rd typically starts with 8 or 9-year-olds. Someone will be chosen to stand up and recite what they remember. At the end of each sentence, hear me, at the end of each sentence, if they got the sentence right, the elders, meaning the grandfathers, will say, Hein, which is kind of like hup in the Baptist church. Hein, I believe hup is a retention of that. But in any case, the word hein means you got that right. So the child will recite a sentence. And at the end of the sentence, if the elders don't say hein, that means he got the sentence wrong. He's got to go back and try again. And if he screws it up 3 times in a row, they have him sit down and they have a 10-year-old stand up. So at any given time, there's a dozen children that can recite the entire corpus of Odu Ifa as it was expressed 10,000 years ago, with few, if any, mistakes. And it refers to a depth of wisdom that is far superior to anything I ever learned in university. And I went to some of the best European schools there are. So
can you get into like written language, and why is it? Because I was saying that written language is to be interpreted, and it's also to be manipulated, right? But oral tradition, you have to get it right. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's a long, long conversation. But yes, the notion that written is better than oral is a colonialist idea. And I don't agree with it at all. I don't know, there's a lot more to say than that. You know, written, it's just as easy to manipulate written language as it is to manipulate oral language. I'll give you an example of that. All right. You ready for an example of that?
Yes, definitely.
The manipulation of written language?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I hope everybody's sitting down because now they're going to start another controversy, but I've been known for that. Not a single person is listed in the formal documents in the United States of America of having died from COVID-19. Not one. Not one. Hear me. Not one person is listed as being death by COVID. Every single document that the media has attributed to death by COVID, the official document says deaths with COVID. There's a difference between with and by, and I'll tell you what the difference is. Every human being on Earth has a COVID virus as part of their blood system. We all have COVID, everybody. What the issue is, does that virus become malignant? And does it become malignant to the point where it kills people? The answer is we don't know. But if you try to say like anything like I'm saying now, hopefully we won't be censored, you will be told that you're lying, that you're making up news, that you're not doing science. I'm sorry, it's just the opposite. I am doing science. You're making stuff up and calling it science. That doesn't make it so. Google search the scientific definition of COVID-19 virus, and you can't find it because it doesn't exist. All right. So we're dealing with an illusion on top of an illusion on top of an illusion, and it's all in writing, and people believe it. And there we are. Okay. So the drug companies were able to pass laws in Congress allowing them to change the definition of a virus, allowing them to change the definition of death by a virus, and allowing them to identify an illness that had not been proven through the standard scientific methods. So what's happening there is the ability to manipulate information on a global level. All right. So how were they able to do that? I'm not sure I want to go into that, but I'll just nod that direction briefly since you asked the question. When you go to Congress and you say, I want to change the laws so that it no longer reads death by COVID, but death with COVID, most sane, responsible politicians will say, oh, no, we can't do that. We represent the people. And then the people who want that change say, yes, but I got pictures of you in a compromising situation with children. What do you want to do? Go along with my request, or do you want me to release the pictures? That's the world we're living in. And it's got nothing to do with what's written down and what's oral, right? The people that hold the truth are accused of being conspiracy theorists. You know, the things I just said about COVID, look it up. Don't take my word for it. I don't care if you believe me. You know, I spent 2 years reading all the medical journals, you know, so I feel that my opinion on those things is based in science, and most of the nonsense I hear in the media isn't. But that's just my opinion. Don't take my word for it. Do the research. You know, Bill, there big pharma executives are on trial in Holland right now because they are accused of deliberately manipulating the data, and that they're being accused of the fact that all the deaths during the pandemic were caused not by the illness, but by the vaccine. That's a pretty...
And here's the thing. So at the end of the day, when it goes down, is that, you know, written versus oral. So, you know, people would say, oh, okay, well, I only trust what's written down. Well, guess what? Like I said before, things written could be manipulated.
Well, yeah, but what I just explained, I spent, I guess, 4 years talking about that. And every time I speak about it, I'd get removed from the internet. So, you know, I'm not impressed by the oral versus written argument at all. So, you know, I actually wrote down the result. I wrote 2 books about my findings about COVID and couldn't get it published. So, you know, don't talk to me about written versus oral. That's a dead argument, in my opinion. Was there any other questions before we start on today's topic?
Okay, so I think that, so we're saying, so can you help a non-believer understand what a metaphor and what's real in the Bible? Like, we don't actually drink blood, but Jonah was swallowed by a whale. Amen. Thank you. And the other person said Jonah is spit out to a group of people that worship a fish god, and so told them to fast for a month. Fasting connects with God. That's what people are saying in the audience. So,
all right, put that first question up again. Let me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you help a new believer understand what's metaphor and what's real in the Bible? God, these are all hour-long programs at the very least.
But you know, when you break it down, like a lot of, like, even like with IFA, like it's based on metaphor, but at the end of the day, like there is a lesson to be learned. So it should be pretty simple to say, okay, listen, there is like the underlying story, there is the mid story, and then there is the story that people understand from a 3rd grade level.
Right. Okay. So according to certainly the Catholic Church and most Christians, the only religious history that's true is in the Bible. Okay, so that's obviously nonsense. Every culture has their own tradition, their own history, their own connection to spirit, their own understanding of God, and they have every right to believe whatever they want and express it however they want. IFA in particular, their first principle of good character in IFA is make no judgment. If you want to believe that the Bible's literally true, do that. You know, go ahead. Who cares? But if you want to understand that the Hebrew language is like the Yoruba language, it's based on allusions and metaphors that tell something totally different. The book of Genesis looks like a story about creation. In truth, it's an explanation of alchemy. Every time in the book of Genesis where it says the words, for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, colon, and then a word in Hebrew that seldom makes any sense, that word is a string of letters that are based on the Hebrew correlation between letters and numbers, and the number expressed in that Hebrew word is a resonance used in alchemical formulas. So if you understand alchemy, and if you understand resonance, and if you understand how to translate Hebrew letters into numbers, you can access a scientific understanding of the transformation of elements in the world that is absolutely true, that has absolutely been proven, that lots of cultures use, that you can find scientific journals to confirm, or you can simply believe that it's a literal story about creation, which it's clearly not. And that's true throughout biblical texts. If you really want to take a deep dive into this subject, know this. The original language of biblical texts was Ge'ez and Amharic. Those are the languages of Ethiopia. Ge'ez is the liturgical language of Ethiopia. Amharic is the conversational language of Ethiopia, and Aramaic, which is the language of Jesus, is a dialect of Amharic. So, what does all that mean? Well, if you look at the Ethiopian Bible and the concepts found in it, they are clearly precursors of the more common European biblical ideas. But the ideas related to what's called Christ consciousness in the Ethiopian Bible are between 500 and 1,000 years prior to what the Catholic Church calls the living history of the time that Jesus walked the earth. How does that happen? It doesn't. It means that the biblical story that we're familiar with was based on older sources, and then those sources were denigrated, challenged, and dismissed. It's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, okay. So the guy that's making a big deal out of this is Mel Gibson. I'm not a big fan of him theologically, and I think he's got some things he needs to deal with. But having said that, he's right about his perception of the value of the Ethiopian biblical texts, of which they're the only intact versions are essentially handwritten, I believe. There might be a few published versions, but they tell an older story and a different story. And usually the older story is the closer to the truth. So it's up to you all to figure out what you want to believe. Good luck with that. I support whatever you choose. But we'll do a class on this one day, because I can go on and on and on, and it's not relevant to what I'm trying to talk about today here. You with me?
So I asked you all those questions because, like I said, when I talked about written versus oral,
right,
you had all these different things that came up.
Yeah, no, that's fine, and I'm willing to answer them, and we can break this class into 2 sessions if we need to. But there's to argue that written is better than oral is just to not understand the way the brain works.
Right, because okay, let me just say this. There's a reason why I say this, right? So when you go into the Bible, right, I believe that the Bible was not meant to be read by everybody. I believe there was priests that were supposed to be interpreting the Bible, similar to what's going on in IFA. Not necessarily the Bible, but the Torah, and that it was an oral tradition at one point that got written down, and then everybody got a hold to it, and then now it's up for interpretation by various different people. And at one point, it was just like all the religions in Africa, where it was priests that were to.
Yeah, stop. That's not true. There was never any secrets. The priests were not ever the only people that can interpret it. That is a Catholic idea that has been imposed on our faith by colonial minds trying to manipulate what we believe. When I say the oracle is read in public by 8-year-olds, how is that saying that only priests can interpret it? It's not. It's saying that it's our job as priests to explain the meaning of Odu. That's our job, not to keep it a secret, not to tell people, they can't understand, not to tell people you have to be a high priest to be able to really work with this. That is all propaganda rooted in a colonialist point of view designed to make sure that nobody learns anything, nobody becomes self-sufficient, and I would argue designed to cover up the fact that a lot of people are just making stuff up.
Oh, I'm glad that we're having this conversation. See,
that's my opinion. Not everybody's going to agree with me, and that's fine. But here's the point. The proof is in the pudding. Isn't that what your grandma said? If she was from down south, the proof is in the pudding. If you look at the metaphysical principles expressed by Odu Ifa, and if you embrace them as a way of looking at the world, does your life improve? I can say for me, I've studied Ifa, I look at the principles, I take seriously the development of Iwa Pwele. The development of Iwa Pwele has caused an expansion of my consciousness, and that's brought me great joy and inner peace. That's all I know. I don't know what God really thinks. I don't know which tradition is correct. I don't know who the historical Jesus was really. I got some ideas, but we could debate that, and who cares? The point is, what do I do? What do I need to do to improve the quality of my life? Ifa teaches that Iwa Pwele brings suru. Suru is the word for inner peace. The reason that there's so much violence in the world is people are trying to bully each other into agreeing with them because they have no sense of confidence in their own inner world. You understand? I mean, look at. Okay, so here we go. Look at the prevalence of pedophilia. I mean, that's insane. All right. So what is pedophilia? Pedophilia, according to Wilhelm Reich, is a consequence of a person's need to control others expresses itself as sex with children. He proved that a long time ago. He's one of the first books to be banned in America. His medical license was taken away from him. He was a psychiatrist for saying that. But the point is, if you look at slavery was just rooted in sexual abuse of children, men, women. And so that the end of slavery, rather than the European slave owners who were responsible for that heinous crime, they tried to justify it by maintaining white privilege. And we're now seeing the cornerstone of white privilege is the right to rape children. That doesn't even make any sense unless you see it as a psychological resistance to owning what Carl Jung called your shadow. You know, when's the last time you've had a public discussion about the depth of sexual depravity during slavery? Maybe never. And until we address that issue, it's going to manifest itself unconsciously in forms of justification. That's why the victims of sexual abuse are being demonized, and the sexual abusers are being protected. There's a reason for that. There's a psychological reason for that. If you understand Ifa, the psychological reason for that is really, really clear, as is the path towards transformation, redemption, and elevation. But rather than look at those tools, people want to denigrate the African way of do things and say that the only way you can do Ifa is when it has a Catholic overlay and is rooted in ideas associated with Jesus. And I am of the opinion that is simply not true. If you look at the ideas of the Prophet Arumia, they are different than the ideas of Jesus. So we can't really evaluate the difference until we understand the difference. And we can't understand the difference until we discuss the difference. And we're not going to be able to discuss the difference if you're going to call me names every time I express an idea that you don't agree with. Did we cover the basics here? I hope. Yeah.
Here we go. Let's go. So let's go into it now. Man.
Here's the first system of divination that I teach. It's called one goat head. When you make an offering of a goat, when you prepare a goat for feeding the Awos who are praying for you, the word abo does not mean sacrifice. It never meant that. It doesn't mean that. It will never mean that. Abo means offering in the context of alchemical transformation of the elevation of consciousness. By killing a goat in a ritual, a sacrifice here denigrating the teachings of the prophet of Romeo and not understanding what he tried to say at all. So we do make prayers when we make offerings, and one of the ways we determine if the prayers are heard in Orun or heard by our ancestors is we toss the goat head up in the air. If it lands neck down, the prayers are heard. If it lands neck up, we need to say some more prayers. That's one of the most basic systems of divination used in IFA. You'll see Awos during rituals grab the goat head by the ears and throw it up in the air. And the first time I saw that, I thought, what the heck is going on? So now we know. All right. So we can do the same thing, yes, no, with one cowrie shell. This is the stomach. This is the mouth. If the mouth is up, it's yes. If the stomach is up, it's no. The stomach is that part of the shell where you pick off the shell and you see a little spiral inside. This spiral, excuse me, let me point to this spiral. There you go. That's the mouth of the cowrie shell. That's the stomach. Perfect. Great pictures. You see the stomach has a little line in it. That line represents the umbilical cord. The Yoruba word for umbilical cord is EB. EB does not mean Arishi hates you. EB means the client is in resistance to learning the lesson. Okay, so the system of one cowrie shell, we can also do the same thing with one obi abata, one kola shell. We'll see as we get into this that the obi abata has male and female little nodes in it. There you go. Perfect. Beautiful. And you can use one, you break them in half, you use one, you get a yes or a no. And then traditionally, if you get a yes in terms of questions about your prayers, you offer part of the kola nut to the spirit you're talking to, and you eat part of it yourself. That becomes the abo. All right. So okay, meji yams. All right. So when you offer yams, you can cut the yam in half, and this is the inner part of the yam. This is the there you go. Perfect. You can cut those in half, and it makes a yes/no oracle as well. Meji yams. All right. So then we go to bots and misprints are obi kola. So the obi kola has male pieces and let me see. Can you see this? Female pieces. That's a female pieces. The female pieces are round. Oh, there you go. There's a good picture. Okay. So here's the system. A male and a female is a yes. A male and a female up is yes. A male and any other one down is no. A male and a female open is yes. Same thing down here. Two parts, a male and a female down is no, and two female is yes. So pretty simple, similar to four count.
What about heads or tails? Same, like if you take like two pennies and you have a head and you have a tail, the head would be the female, the tail would be the male, and then if you throw two,
not quite. No, it's a little more complicated than that. Look at it this way. These pictures aren't as good as they should have been. I'm going to do this again. We're going to have some spontaneous art here, okay? Can you see this? This is a male piece of obi. This is a female piece. Each one of these pieces has two sides. Now, with just two things, I have four options. You understand? With a coin, with heads and tails, you only have two options for each coin. But head or tail, yes or no. We put two coins together, it's still head or tail, yes or no. All right. But with this, you can have black, white, 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 black, and the black side. What I'm calling the black side is the outer shell, The white side is the inner shell. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
All right. Okay. So, two cowrie shells. 2 mouths up is yes. A mouth and a stomach is yes. 2 stomachs is a no. That's 2 calories. Yeah. Okay. Very good. We're on a roll now. Four calories, Marin calories. Yes, that's 4 mouths up. No, 4 stomachs up. 2 stomachs up. 2 mouths up. That's a yes. 1 stomach up is a maybe. Yes. 1 mouth up is, excuse me. Yeah, 1 mouth up is a maybe no. You got that? There you go. Yes, exactly. Yes, and each of those has different names. We're expected to know those. Yes, Itagora. There's different names for those, but that's a good. You've got, yes, very good, very good, very good. Perfect. All right. So it gets more complicated. You can use 2 obi. All these are yes, all those are no. Those are things that you need to sit down and study for the purposes of our review. Just know that using 2 pieces of obi abata is an option. Here's one that you don't see often, but I saw it a lot in Africa. Sometimes people throw, can you see that, with just 1 leg of the opwele. So it's the same as reading 4 calories. 2 lines, 1 line, 2 lines, and so on, depending on how it falls. All right. So this is essentially used for yes, no. So show that picture again. So just look at the right side. That would be a 1 leg opile, and it's the same as throwing 4 obiobatas or 4 cowrie shells. All right. There's a system I haven't written out here. It's called 8 obi cola. That is used in lieu of 16 calories for priests of Shango in the city of Oyo. When they use 8 obi cola, it's a yes, no, coupled with a reference to the first 8 odu, as those odus are sequenced in Merindin. Now we have 16 calories. The word Merindin Ogun, commonly in the diaspora, it's called Dilogun. Dilogun means 20 in Yoruba. Merindin Ogun means 20 minus 4. 4 is Merin, Din is minus, Logun is 20. So, yeah, okay. So, Ogun, when they do Merindin Ogun, uses 12 cowrie shells and uses 4 coins and 12 cowrie shells. They read all 16 as if it was 16 calories, but they use the 4 coins to get a secondary odu, which delivers a message to the diviner about how to work effectively with their client. All right. The last method is the not the last method. The next method is the opile. Opiles tend to have even and odd number of tassels. The even number of tassels fall to the right, odd number to the left. If this flips in midair, you flip it back because the double tassel is always the right side. All right. All right. So now a big ba. This, I showed you the single chain for the single leg in certain areas of traditional Yoruba culture, specifically Abi of Kuta, probably others that I'm not aware of. They throw the single legs 4 at a time and they get 2 odus. It's called a big ba. Some areas they do 3. I don't know what that's called. I haven't seen that done. But that would be an additional version of the double chain. 15 is the Ekin. We've all seen the Ekin slap. You grab a bunch of Ekin. If there's 2 left in your hand, you mark 1 mark on the tray. If there's 1 left in your hand, you mark 2 marks on the tray. And the last one is 3 sets of Abeji statues. Can you look that up? It's called Idan usually on the internet. The Abeji statues that are chained together at the head. And each of these statues is a twin with a male and a female. No, that's the wooden Abeji. Look up the Idan, I-D-A-N. It might come up under that. So these are bronze statues chained together at the head with spikes at the bottom, all right? The system of divination is used in Ogboni in trials where there's a capital offense. If someone is caught molesting a child, they'll be tried, they'll be arrested, tried, and executed all on the same day. If they're found guilty, the oracle...
You know, I've tried to find that. I cannot find that online.
That's all right. Trust me, there's brass statues. I'll look for it. I used to have some. I'll look in my computer. But these spikes are then, if it's 3 or more face up, the person is guilty. The spikes are placed in their nose and then shoved into their brain, and that's the system of execution. And while they're being executed, they're saying prayers that they reincarnate as a better person. So the point of all that...
Oh, hold on. No, you can't just skip over that. Hold on. So they have a court system that, okay, if they did something really terrible in the...
No, not something really terrible. If they either committed murder or child molestation, there's only 2 capital offenses in IFA. If you rape a child or kill somebody, you're called before Ogboni, who then settles where you're given an opportunity to defend yourself. If you lose your case and the Ogboni elders decide you're guilty, then the punishment is determined by this system of divination. The divination tool is also the tool of execution. The people that use it as an execution tool in Ogboni are called Oro, and the men of Oro are trained to elevate your spirit as they're executing you so that you do not return to earth as a murderer or a child molester.
Wow. And they shove that in your eyes?
No, in your nose.
In your nose?
Yes.
Wow. Man.
So, I don't want to belittle. The only thing I want to say about that is there's a group called International Ogboni that's advertising on Facebook. That is not traditional Ogboni. That group does not use this method. That group has the right to exist, but they have no jurisdiction in traditional Yoruba culture. It's essentially a made-up fraternity that has no real claim to power, and people need to pay attention. One of the first things the British did when they came was they outlawed traditional, what's called Aboriginal, that's a bad word, but that's what's called Aboriginal Ogboni. Eventually they replaced it with Reformed Ogboni. Essentially, Reformed Ogboni is the British introducing Skull and Bones as a secret society to control the economy of the country under the guise of traditional religion, and it's really insidious in my opinion. And so people are participating in those rituals without really realizing what they're involved with. And it would be fair to say not everything that is part of Reformed Ogboni is legal. Let's just leave it at that. So, it's important to know our history, know our faith, and to know our protocols. The same thing was true with Iyami. Iyami was banned, outlawed. People in the diaspora think it was outlawed because women are evil. No, that's a Catholic idea. Iyami is essential for the practice of Ifa anywhere in the diaspora. It's the healing ashe of the mothers. How can that be evil? The answer is it can't. The notion that Iami are evil is just beyond silly. So the other point is, in the diaspora, they say Ifa priests don't go into possession, right? The reason they say that is because there's been a loss of the secret of how Awos go into possession. And the secret of putting an Awo into possession with the spirit of Elah is held by the women of Iami. If you do not have Iami doing their function during Tefa in the diaspora, the Awo will not go into possession. It's that simple. And if you don't believe me, go to Africa on June 23rd and listen to the recitation of Odu, and they will explain to you how the function of Iami facilitates the connection of an Ifa priest to the spirit of Elah. You can hear it anywhere in the country. It's fully explained. And just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not true. So we need to really be able to continue these conversations without so much judgment and hostility, We're at a situation now where, Lukumi World, bless their heart, is going to Africa to teach Africans the correct way to do things. Personally, I find that inappropriate, but that's just my opinion. There's so much that we don't know. How are you going to fix something that you don't even understand in the first place? So there's a great deal of wisdom still remaining to be retrieved from Africa. And, I've done what I can, and I've taught my students now I'm very clear about what I know and what I don't know, and I've given people the instruction of going to Africa and discovering the things I don't know so that we can make a continuous effort to reclaim a lost wisdom that is beyond belief in terms of its depth, integrity, and effectiveness as a problem-solving tool.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Now this is kind of getting it still has something to do with divination, but it also has to do with dreaming, right?
Right.
Now, my mom died when I was 14. My father died when I was 6.
Oh, Ibaye, okay.
And then I had a baby. There's a thing they call the babies that die 2 months after. It's a word for it. Abiku, right? So I had a lot of death. My child's father died. I had, me being a child of Oya, a lot of death, right, around me. So here's the thing. In my dreams, I have seen my mother, and I have felt as if that I'm in a different timeline where she's still existing. It's almost real.
No, stop. It's not almost real. It is real. She does exist on another timeline. And Ifa teaches you the tools on how to access that. That's the main function of Iami, is to access contact and interaction with the ancestral mothers. We do that through the use of astral travel. You've heard the term Iami Oshoranga, but nobody knows what the heck that means. That's not a spirit, that's a process. Iami Oshoranga, from the Elysian Ia, Ami, Osho, Ranga, literally means the ability to astral travel to the realm of the mothers to gain, to internalize female Ashe.
So
there's no H in Oshoranga. It's a line under the S, but that's close enough. And there's a double A in Iami.
Iami. Let me do it right. I want to give them respect. Iami. Oh, so wrong. I can't do the Oshoranga. So here we go.
That's all right.
So Iami Oshoranga.
Oshoranga is how it's pronounced. And so the Iami Oshoranga is the group of mothers who come together for ritual purposes to travel in the astral realm. They meet in the Iroko tree in their astral bodies on the full moon, which is how they also have synchronized their menstrual cycles. So Iami Oshoranga is the element of Ifa spiritual practice that makes positive use of menstrual blood. The notion that menstrual blood is dirty is a Catholic idea. It's not consistent with anything that's taught anywhere in Nigeria by anybody who understands our faith. And that menstrual blood is used as a catalyst for astral travel because it's rich in melatonin and serotonin. And if you rub menstrual blood on the third eye, it'll facilitate astral travel. That's called right brain, left brain integration. It's called Starfire ritual. That ritual is done both throughout Africa and throughout Eastern Europe. So it's a common link between those traditions, which I spoke about earlier. And that process of starfire has been denigrated by the Catholic Church through the invention of the ridiculous notions about vampires and drinking blood. That's all made up denigration of ancient IFA and European rituals. So menstrual blood is also a key element in the IFA initiation. But instead of understanding that, people have a fit if a woman is present on her cycle. Nonsense. That's a sacred place. It's a sacred function. That blood is used, and it's a key component in making sure an Awo is able to go into altered states of consciousness.
Wow. And so here's a question too. So let me go into this, right? So I died. I'm gonna say this. All right. I was in a car accident, flipped over. Okay. I can show you the pictures. I don't think you want to see them, but it was horrible. So in 2013, I flipped my car over and I bled to death. Okay. It's heavy, right? Now I believe in my heart of hearts that in 2013 I passed away, but then I also, because I saw like the whole thing, like that there was a calm that came over me. I saw my kids, I saw my life flash and whatever, and then all of a sudden I was pulled out of that car. I fell asleep, pulled out the car, and ever since then, like the spiritual plane, the earth that I'm on is slightly different than the earth that I was on prior to that situation, right?
Yeah, listen, that could be as a result of your after-death experience, but it's also likely related to some experiments that were done at CERN, which is a particle accelerator on the border between Switzerland and France, which caused a shift in timeline leading to what people call the Mandela effect. That we could spend another.
But hold on, no. But did that happen in 2013?
I believe
was
so.
There one in 2013?
I believe that was the date. Actually, it might have been a little earlier, but in any case,
in October.
Oh, I don't remember. I have to look it up. But my point is, it could be as a result of your astral travel. It also could be as a result of a global shift in timeline. I would not be prepared to make a judgment either way, but other than to say that both are real possibilities.
Because I was trying to understand whether this is just even IFA. You have this thing about timelines. You have a thing about because you know how IFA talks about reincarnation. But what if reincarnation is not just a matter of you actually dying completely, but just like you might die on one timeline? And I know this sounds crazy, but then continue on.
No, that's not crazy. That's the point. There is no such thing as death in IFA metaphysics. The Odu Oyeku means Oyeye-iku, meaning the spirit of the mother of death, which means understanding death. So when Ifa speaks of your life and your destiny, is not speaking of the year 2026 in planet Earth. Is talking about all of your reincarnations in all of your lifetimes, in all the planets that you've lived on, and the continuation of that consciousness through the transition of a particular lifetime. And that, in fact, at IFA funerals, which is something nobody ever talks about, I'm not even sure people have studied it, but at IFA funerals, we invite extraterrestrials to come to facilitate the transition into the next dimension and to allow the person to be reborn and give their last will and testimony. So hear what I just said. We were taught in written form, in written books, that only one person in the history of life on Earth was resurrected after their death. I'm telling you that every single IFA priest who dies in Africa is resurrected after their death, and the resurrection process is part of the funeral process, and that funeral process is facilitated through connection with extraterrestrial beings called Ogbo. And I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. I'm telling you, I've had training in it. I've seen aspects of it, and I believe it to be true. Oh, I can't hear you.
All right. So, is there different levels of reincarnation?
Yeah. Listen, you can.
But hold on. Let me break it down. Right. What I've experienced. Right. I believe what I'm seeing is that there's like one level of reincarnation. If you die a premature death based on you making the wrong decision, you will die on a timeline, but then continue on a different one. Same body, same life, but like the past of that thing is slightly different. You get like kind of like pushed to a different timeline. You continue to live on. In one timeline you passed on, another one you live on, right? And so you're living on. It's slightly different than what was going on in the other timeline. Things are a little bit different, whatever. But if you live out, go all the way through and no problems, then you have that actual true reincarnation back to childbirth, whatever. Am I wrong or what? Am I right?
Well, I'm saying
nothing that I've actually read. This is just something
no,
I
listen,
understand it.
Yes, what you say is theoretically possible. There's 3 books that cover that topic called the Montauk Project. IFA, at the level of training I have not heard elders speak about that possibility clearly. I believe it is possible, and I believe as we improve our understanding of Odu IFA, it will become more clear. But the real key to understanding what you're saying is to understand that creation is co-creation. And it's co-creation by virtue of the fact that that's the way consciousness works. So that we co-create our...
Uh-oh. I hope his phone, I hope his computer didn't die. Did it die? Oh, no. Uh-oh. Wow. Man, we were getting deep. We were getting into some deep stuff. We were really getting deep here. That we were getting into something real, maybe we're getting too deep. I don't know. All right, here we go.
There we go. Listen, I got shut down. I think people are annoyed with our conversation.
It don't matter.
And that's a good sign.
But if that's a good sign. I mean that we really hitting on something. Come on now.
Yes, here's what I want to say to you about that. As a 79-year-old man who's studied metaphysics most of my life, I think what you're talking about is real. I think there's not a lot of documentation on it. It's not clear what IFA says about it, but it is more clear what Egyptian spirituality talks about with it. And I think there's definitely a link between Ifa metaphysics and Egyptian metaphysics. And again, that's a long discussion. I think I know that the pyramids at Giza are a machine. They're not a tomb. That's nonsense. The structures under the pyramid are real. Have you seen those pictures of the 8 giant
those spirals that go down?
Yeah, those are real. Yeah, but those are only the tip of the iceberg. Why am I not being shown here? What's happening? Oh, I see.
Okay.
I got it. There I go. Okay. The pyramids in Egypt at the 3 great pyramids above the underground city. Those pyramids are connected to a series of stone circles. Look up Michael Tillinger Adam's calendar, you'll see pictures of the stone circles that are connected to the pyramids in Egypt. The pyramids in Egypt are connected to stone circles that run all the way from northern Egypt to South Africa. And those stone circles are pictures, or graphic images of resonant sound patterns. Each of those stone circles is about 50 feet across, connected by what you call a highway. And so far, Michael Tillinger has documented over 10 million of those circles. So the pyramid complex, there it is. See that right there? Right there? There's 50 million of those in East Africa, all in a straight line directly under the pyramids. That is a huge machine that was involved in terraforming. The ancient Africans literally shaped the earth and made it livable. That's part of the wisdom and the legacy of ancient Egyptian metaphysics and ancient IFA. IFA has the key to how to terraform the planet. That information can be used to terraform the other planets in our solar system. That information is known by the few who control the many. I know that they know because I grew up with them. I know what they know. They know that I know, and they're not happy with me for sharing about it. So the point is, as fantastic as that sounds, as hard to believe as that sounds, that whole system of terraforming is predicated on the ability of the initiate priest to blend their consciousness with the consciousness of the planet itself. The process of learning how to do that is called Iwa Pweli. People say it's good character. No, the word Iwa Pweli means I come to greet the earth. Iwa Opwe Ile. Iwa, the coming, Opwe, the greeting, the spirit of greeting, Ile, the earth. So we come to greet the earth to learn how to work with the earth, to form a environment that supports unconditional love. It's not complicated. So arguing that what I'm saying is not possible, okay, you can believe whatever you want. You can argue with me about it. I'm not inclined to argue much. But the other thing we can do is see if it's true. You understand? We can connect. Here's the point I'm making. And I think this might be a good place to call it a day. The point I'm making for today is, if you and I, pray together, it's not twice as good, it's 3 times as good. If 10 people pray together, it's not 10 times as good, it's 100 times as effective. 16 people pray together, and I've seen this in Africa many times. When 16 people are praying together, they're all on the same page, they're all of the same intention, they're all coming from a place of unconditional love. They're not worried about being jealous about who's in charge, who knows more, and who does it correctly. When they're all on the same page, functioning in a state of prayer, physical reality changes as they speak, which would confirm your idea that you live on a different earth. If you're engaged in effective prayer, the earth itself will change in front of your eyes as you speak and become a different place.
So that's what it is. Is it about like the fact that like my prayer, like probably even upon my own like demise, it caused the earth to change to form like within like, and is that really what the divination method does? Is that instead of you going down one way, based on the prayers and based on the ebo, like the not the sacrifice, but the offering you give, it actually changes your trajectory in almost like the I don't want to get all science fiction and sci-fi on people, but it's almost like, Dr. What's that thing on what is it? Marvel Comics, like how you had that thing, Doctor Strange, or was it Doctor?
Yes, well, it's not like that. It is that, and the ability to change our physical environment is predicated on our ability to work together from a place of unconditional love. Once we're able to do that, we're able to create any world we want. And the people who want to control the world and control the world's resources don't want you to figure that out. They don't want you to engage in that activity. All we have to do to put a stop to the foolishness in Washington now is to join together and create an alternative by agreement. And we outnumber the negative people that are trying to keep us subdued by huge numbers. I mean, it's like less than 1% of 1% of the population is controlling everything. And the only question is, why are we letting them do that? And we're letting them do that because we're buying into the propaganda of the narrative that teaches us that we're worthless, we can't do anything, we can't be effective, and we have to violently react to anybody who disagrees with us. None of that's true at all, not even a little bit. So we have to consider the value of the alternatives. And I would say the values of the alternative are worthy of consideration and clearly expressed in Odu Ifa. So next time I speak,
hold on, I have one person here that she came here earlier.
That's
when we
fine.
were trying to get everything together.
Any questions? That's fine. It's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi.
Hello.
My question is that it is said that Odu Ifa is built on binary codes, and that the computers that exist today and probably in ancient times as well was built on binary codes. So my question is that is the earth itself, the animals, the human beings, everything built, oh wow, is built on binary codes? Or,
Yeah, listen, you're on the right track. I'm going to explain that. It's going to take a little bit of a minute.
Okay.
But the entire structure of creation is rooted in what's called a Merkaba. You know what a Merkaba is?
Yes.
Odu is a two-dimensional symbolic representation of an energy pattern called a Merkaba. A Merkaba is two counter-rotating three-sided pyramids within a torsion sphere. All right. So that structure is the fundamental structure of subatomic particles. Hence, the structure of every single thing in creation is based on the Merkaba. Now, the Merkaba, if you understand that personal consciousness is not, there it is not our consciousness, we see the world with the consciousness of the Creator itself. And so that the consciousness of the Creator comes into the physical world through the use of geometric patterns. The most fundamental geometric pattern through which the Creator speaks to us is called a Merkaba. So the Odus that we use in the binary system is a shorthand. It's a two-dimensional way of drawing three-dimensional energy patterns, which become very complex once you go into third, fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions. Almost impossible to draw. So we shorthand that. We make that simple. We put it into a two-dimensional format. So if you look at the Merkaba and you see that the three-sided pyramid has 4 points of contact with the circumference of the sphere, and each of those points of contact, 3 at the base, 1 at the top, 4 points of contact, can be either opened or closed. And if it's open, it allows for electromagnetic energy to come into the sphere and generate a particular resonance, and the resonance then generates geometric form. This is the meaning of the universal phrase, in the beginning was the word, not the word, the resonance created by a Merkaba, the Merkaba being the portal through which God's consciousness comes into the world. So the point being is that if you're doing Ifa and you're marking the binary system on the tray, that becomes a portal for the consciousness of God. And when you go into an altered state called Elah, you connect with that consciousness. And it's that connection that allows you to interpret the Odu and effectively do prayers that will cause elevation and transformation. So the point that you're making that's been overlooked, which is important, is the binary system used to program computers. I'm going to draw you a picture. Maybe it'll make sense. All right. You do computer programming? You know what that looks like?
I do. And that's why I was trying to say, when I talk about like that whole experience of like near death, it almost is like a computer. Like when you go play Grand Theft Auto, right? You might pass on, but you get another life. And then
I'm going to show you something. So this is what computer binary system programming looks like. It's typically read, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's read from right to left.
Oh, wow.
In sequence like that, right? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what the computer people don't realize is even though this was designed to work like that, it still works like this. So this is a series of odus that are maps of consciousness that have been coded into computers from day one of their invention. And that consciousness controls those machines in ways that we barely understand. And we better understand it quickly because they're fixing to be manipulated by people that have no sense of ethics at all.
Is that what AI is? Is that the ability to go
AI is a feeble attempt by some really dumb people to explain what I just said and work that to their advantage and make sure you don't understand what this really means. Wow. That's what AI is. And so we in IFA have the key to explaining that. We have the key to working that to our advantage. We have the key to salvation. We have the key to the elevation of consciousness. We have the key to not be sold into slavery for the umpteenth millionth time. We have the key to transcend the narrative created by Trump, Musk, and Gates and find our own purpose in life, find our own reason for existence, find our own creativity, and find our own joy in engaging with others in the act of unconditional love.
And you know what? And that's probably why like learning divination is important. Rather than going to AI to find your answers, you can actually use divination.
Listen, I read AI. You've seen AI has been explaining IFA for the last year. Okay. And the only way I get a taboo against using bad language. If I didn't have that taboo, I'd say
you want to cuss so bad, don't you?
No. AI is nonsense. If you believe any of their explanations of anything in IFA, you're wasting your time and you're not going to get anywhere, and you're going to think you're smart and you're going to stay stuck, and it's all going to be, you're going to look back in your life and think, wow, I could have actually studied IFA instead of dealing with this foolishness. So avoid that heartache and actually study IFA. That's my point.
Do you have another question, Nyla?
Yeah, I do have another question. So would you say that the Odu Meiji, like the foundation of the earth, the seas, the land, is built on the Meijis? And would when it comes specific to like a flower or a person, does it then split off to compounding Odus?
Oh yeah, no, sort of. The Meiji Odus are the foundation of all consciousness throughout creation. Have you been through IFA initiation?
Yes.
Okay, so the ritual is the ritual in metaphysical terms. The person who's initiating you is going to invoke the Meiji Odus on your head, and then they're going to invoke Oshetura. Oshetura causes the Meiji Odus to copulate, giving birth to all other 240 Odus in the corpus, and all 256 Odus then become the basis of different streams of consciousness. So as a human being, rather than having 6 senses, you have 256 senses. And IFA teaches you the technology how to zoom in on one of those streams of consciousness to assist you with a particular problem you're having at any given moment in your life. And so the solution to that problem comes by shifting the resonance in your brain, and the oriki that accompany those Odu are different frequencies. So there's 256 different frequencies which are expressed through the poetry of each of those Odus. And the real transformation is not God help us all from goat blood. The transformation comes from the shift in frequency. So let me give you an example. If you are a Native American shaman and you want to make rain, you go up on a mountain, you draw a circle, and you remember what it felt like the last time you got rained on. That shifts your consciousness into a particular frequency, and that frequency resonates with those patterns as they exist in creation and make it rain. And so that's true for the solution to every problem. You don't become wealthy by begging for abundance. That's a waste of time. That's just an acknowledgement of poverty. You become wealthy by standing in the residence of one who is successful in the world. And that resonance then attracts those who can support that effort and move your life along in a way that's productive. As long as you're not resonating with that vibration, your prayers are ineffective. Look at the holy Odu Oshe Meji is the Odu that gives power to our prayers. All right. So what does Oshe mean? It means the spirit of Ashe, the spirit of power, connecting with the spirit of power, being possessed with the power that's inherently part of your Ori, standing in that prayer and visualizing that which you think would make the world a better place.
Wow,
Okay.
that's amazing. And listen, one real quick thing. What is the significance of Osayin?
Yeah, okay. Osayin. Okay, so when you do initiation, you'll see people will fly for herbs from Africa and from Puerto Rico, and they'll get all flustered if they don't. No, Ifa teaches the herbs you use for initiation, you gather within walking distance of the place where you do the initiation. Because herbs, like everything else in creation, have consciousness. So the consciousness that roots you to the earth allows you to connect with the earth, allows you to greet the earth, allows you to engage in Iwa Pele, which is greeting the earth, which allows you to become a part of the world around you, comes from acknowledging the consciousness of the plant life around you. And Ifa teaches that in the holy Odu, Okano no Turapan, if you ingest that Odu, you have the power to communicate with herbs, and the herbs will speak to you in the language you understand.
Makes a lot of sense because they say that, even if you have a house, the herbs around your house will actually grow according to what you need in that house as a person. I've heard like stuff like, and you know what? When I walk outside my house, I have elephant thing. I have like fig, and I have a high blood pressure. I also have persimmons growing outside, and all those things, what they deal with blood pressure and this, that, the other. So it's interesting that even when you live at, the herbs will begin to grow according to what you need around you. So we are not just beings, but our presence on this earth actually causes things to change around us. Correct?
That's absolutely true. Well spoken. I'm gonna quote you. Nope.
Wow. So, and then I know you're trying to get up out of here.
No, I'm good. I just don't want to. Sometimes I ramble a little bit. I'm trying to stay coherent.
No, we love the rambling because listen, when we have an elder up here, a person that have spent time and learned the things, we're not over here rushing them off the channel. We want to get as much knowledge as we can from that elder because, we've had plenty of elders that, we have to get the knowledge when we can, because right now, the way things are going,
I'm always available. No rush. We'll take as long as it takes. I have a series of 8 lectures I want to do, but after that, we can open it up to other things. The point is, next week I want to speak about people will say that Ifa priests don't go into possession. Okay, so why do I say that that's mistaken? I say that's mistaken because the Holy Odu, Ogunda Osa, says, this is what it says. I'm translating now from Yoruba to English. Ogunda Osa said, this is the oriki you use during initiation to put a Yawo into possession with the spirit of Ela after you have invoked the Meji Odus and invoked Oshaitura to cause them to copulate in your head, opening all 256 portals in your brain. Once you've done that, you connect those open portals to the spirit of Ela, and Ela becomes your connection to all of creation. So if the Odu is saying that, then why would you argue that there's no such thing as Ifa priests going into possession? The Odus give you the technology for going into possession. Do you think they're doing that just to make stuff up? They're doing that just to hear themselves talk? They're doing that to deceive people? No, they're doing that because it's an important tool in the toolkit of healing ourselves, connecting to others, and being a healthy part of the planet itself. And so that oriki for possession by Ela, I'm going to do not all of it, most of it. Essentially, the oriki is the true name of the spirit of Ela, the spirit of Arumia. and it takes 2 hours to recite the name. So there's a whole bunch of resonance included in the word Allah that we never hear, we never use, we never invoke, we never access, we never try to understand. And I would like to help initiate the process of looking at that as a profoundly important tool in our ritual process.
So what is the difference between Allah and Allah?
Allah, okay, that's a good linguistic question. The letter E is like a pronoun, all right? So E means the. So the word Allah is an elision of A. The letter E is pronounced A in Yoruba. And the word Allah. Allah is light. So Allah means the light, capital T, the light. Okay, but it's not the light of a light wave. It's the light of what the ancient Egyptians in their infinite wisdom called a longitudinal light beam. A longitudinal light beam is a light beam that functions at 432 hertz and which has no wave. It's a straight line. The light beam of Allah, unlike a light wave, which is a curly-Q thingy, the light of Allah gets stronger as it moves away from source. And as it moves away from source, it continues in the universe until it hits the edge of the universe and returns to its source. So it's a biofeedback system. So Allah is the key component for unleashing the potential for free energy that we find in the Odu Ije. So Allah is both a metaphysical principle, an important ethical concept, but it is also the fundamental idea with regard to what I call IFA science and the ability to use alchemy to transform one element into another and make a better world. And the thing that's amazing is Spirit's going to give us this information whether we want it or not. Mediums of Allah can really explain all that in depth, but right now the best medium for Allah I've encountered who's explaining all the paleo science of Odu Ifa is an actor named Terrence Howard. I don't even sure he knows what Ifa is, but everything I've heard him say about science matches the liturgical Yoruba that describes Ifa in Odu Ifa. The other person who really had a handle on the Ifa understanding of Allah is Nikola Tesla. He used the concepts we find in Odu Ifa to generate free energy. Absolutely.
Wow. And bottom line is free energy is a real thing. That we don't really need this grid that we.
Oh, yeah. Well, is it a free thing? You want to know if free energy is a real thing? You want to know? You want to test that for yourself?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, do this. Next time you're around somebody, have them rub their hands like this. And then have them put their hands like this so that the palms face each other. Can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And then you put your hand between those two hands and tell me if you feel something. If you feel something, that means this has generated energy. We call that energy Ashe. That Ashe comes from Allah. Allah connects to humans in a spiritual form that we call Allah.
And that's what they do in Reiki.
Yeah, it is. It's the same thing.
And also in that other thing that they do with where it got outlawed, I forget what it's called. Like in China, it was a big thing. They outlawed it. The
Qigong. Yeah, Qigong. Yeah.
Qigong. So
my grandfather analyzed the resonant frequencies of what we call Odu and used it to effectively heal cancer and other terminal illnesses. The AMA took away his medical license and made him stop. Stanford studied his technology twice. Both times they confirmed that it was effective. My grandfather had Nikola Tesla make the machines that generated the resonance that produced those results. And all that technology was based on scientific exploration of frequency and healing that was done in ancient Egypt.
Wow. And see, and is it based on like sound and tonation of actual notes? Because they have this thing now called PEMF,
Yeah, it is
EMF.
actual. Yeah, it is actual notes. Listen, you know what solfege is? You know what that means? Solfege.
Yeah, I'm a musician. So
Okay, do re mi fa sol la ti.
Tito. Yeah.
Okay, that was invented by the Egyptians.
Mm.
But it's also those sounds. It's whole step, half step, whole step, half step. If you graph that in a chart, it makes the Fibonacci curve or the golden mean of a seashell pattern, which is sacred to Obatala. But the key interval in that creation of the spiral is the relationship between do and fa, right? But in the original Egyptian system of solfege, do was called E. So we go to the fundamental uh, resonant harmony of creation, and you pronounce it in ancient Coptic Egyptian by the words E fa.
Mm.
Hello. Where do you think the word came from? It's an
E and
expression.
fa.
Yes,
Wow.
it's a symbol of the resonant frequencies that creates everything.
Wow. Wow. E fa. Like boom. And so that is why when we talk about the drum, we talk about all these different things that are a part of it. This is really based in about sound.
Yes, and
Resonant.
here's the real miracle. All right, the Eureki that were used to put you in possession during your initiation was passed to you from your elders, and it was passed to them by their elders. The words in those Eurekis create an automatic link with the correct frequency. It's called Ofo Ashe. You're a musician. If I say I want you to sing every pitch between middle C and C above middle C and break it up into 256 different frequencies, you wouldn't be able to do it. I don't think there's any human alive that would be able to do it. But you are able to do it when you say the Ofo Ashe or the words of power in the Eureki, because your brain locks in automatically to those frequencies, which is how we're how we're able to access Ashe and pass it from one generation to another. That's why the traditions are so important, and that's why it's really shameful that instead of spending time with our elders to gain access to that wisdom, we're just making stuff up.
So you have a person real quick. Divination is haram in Islam. Why do you think that is?
Well, divination, haram. I said in Islam. Okay, so divination, as it's practiced in IFA, is based on divination as it was practiced in ancient Egypt, and the text, instead of being Odu IFA, was the emerald tablets. All right, so in Egypt they referred to divination as sand cutting. When the Muslims came into Egypt, they took over that system and they replaced the text of the Book of the Dead with the Quran, which is normal, I think, and also in the Bible, the Ifa divination is called casting of lots. In the Bible, in the ancient times, in Jewish culture, you had a handful of sticks. You grab some. If you had one stick, you marked 2 marks in the sand. If you grabbed two sticks, you mark 1 mark in the sand. Sand cutting, absolutely exactly the same thing as Odu Ifa, except the verses for sand cutting in Hebrew tradition are based on the Torah. And the Torah is a coded reference to the frequencies used in alchemy, and the stories are just a way of holding those secret doctrines.
Right, and that's where I was like kind of getting into like that. The Torah was at one point a thing used for priests to do, but it's okay. But all right, so I'm not gonna hold you too much longer. It's almost
That's all right. I'm good for another few minutes. Keep going.
okay, because I remember I was saying that I believe that the Torah, was equivalent to E5 at one point, an oral tradition that the Levitical priests used, and that it was a certain thing that wasn't even done to even get those laws out. That when you would go to the Levitical priest, this is how things were done. But as time went on, those things became like a book. People read the Torah.
Yeah, listen. The history is a little more clear, but it's definitely suppressed. All right, so let's talk about the history for a minute. Those ideas were developed in ancient Egypt. When Alexander the Great, in quotes, took over Egypt and made himself the pharaoh, the esoteric wisdom of Egypt went into hiding. It went into the mountains along the Hamagadi, it's called, and they were coded into books about Christ consciousness that then migrated into Ethiopia and became the foundation for the Ethiopian Bible. So those are all ancient coded Egyptian texts, what we call the Gospels. There's 4 Gospels, but in the Hamagadi books on Christ consciousness, there's 84 Gospels. So 80 Gospels have been suppressed and declared a heresy because they give people power to transform their own physical reality, is my point. So the point is that when the sand cutting of the divination system of Egypt was forced into hiding by Alexander the Great, it moved through Judaism to Jerusalem, and the texts that described it, the books, the first time it was written down probably, were hidden under Solomon's temple, and after being written down by a group of Egyptian priests living in Jerusalem called the Assyrian. All right. So the Assyrians, when Rome defeated Israel at the beginning of the Common Era and at the time of the crucifixion, there was a Jewish diaspora where the rabbis moved to a country called Septimania, which you've never heard of, but Septimania is in southern France, and there the rabbis met with the Cistercian Catholic priest under Saint Bernard, and they formed a thing called the Knights Templars. The Knights Templar was led by a man named Hugo Païens. In French, Hugo Païens means Hugo the Pagan, which is a way in those days of calling a person African. Hugo Païens was a Moor. Moor is academic code for African from North Africa. Hugo Païens was selected to head the Knights Templars to go to Jerusalem to retrieve all those documents. And he was chosen because he spoke a half a dozen different languages and was able to negotiate his way to get access to that. He got access to those documents. He brought them back to Europe. They became part of what is known in Western academia as the Invisible College, in which great ancient African wisdom was really studied by the intellectuals, but kept from the masses, so to speak. But one of the first things that group did was they realized that English language was inadequate to translate the emerald tablets and the scrolls that were taken from Jerusalem. So those first scholars of African philosophy formed a group to write a series of plays that introduced 3,000 new words to the English language. Those plays were attributed to a man named Shakespeare, who never really existed. It was a collective effort to add scientific concepts to the English language. And
wait, Shakespeare never existed?
No, he was an actor, but he couldn't read or write. He certainly didn't write any of the plays.
What?
And those, how do I know that? Those plays were written by, God, this sounds so pretentious. Those plays were written by an ancient cousin of mine named Nicholas de Vries. So the point is that those scrolls were guarded by a group called the Priory of Zion. And the Priory of Zion over the years has periodically released some of that information. And 100 years ago, the Priory of Zion was run by my ancestors, and that's how I know all this. So they know I know, they know I know, they know I know. They're not all happy that I'm talking about it, but that doesn't mean it's not true. And it certainly shows a connection between ancient Egypt, ancient Hebrew traditions, ancient African traditions, and ancient Islamic traditions to a certain extent, yes.
So how many people that are in power practice IFA quietly?
Well, they don't call it that, but they actually refer to it as Satanism, but it's based on the suppression of similar ideas. And, you know, here's the thing. Okay, so the most recent head of the Satanic Church supposedly died in a New York jail after setting up brothels in New Mexico and in the Caribbean. All right, so if you want to know what all that scandal is about, it's got a little bit to do with raping children, but it's got a lot to do with using ritual to control the world based on ancient African ideas that they do not want you to understand or know. I am not saying that ancient African ideas are evil. I'm saying there are people in the world who control global resources who know how to use those ancient African ideas in an evil way. And we need to reclaim them and use them in a positive way, as was their original intention.
Right. And so what do you think the importance of learning divination for why do you think it's important for everyone to learn how to divine versus
Yeah, listen, here's the value of divination. Every Odu that comes to divine a problem is solved by the opposite Odu. Every one. And the opposite does not mean upside down. So, for example, what's the opposite of Ogun? You know?
No, I don't know.
It's not okay. It's not Osa. It's Obara. All right. So in other words, every single line in an Odu, if you make it a double line, every double line in Odu, you make a single line. That new Odu that you create by that process is the solution to the problem. And the reason it's the solution to the problem is it creates stasis. Stasis is the frequency of EJ Ogbe in which there's perfect balance between the points of the Makaba and the sphere, the torsion sphere that holds the Merkaba, and in that perfect balance comes access to the power of creation to transform physical reality.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when you get to be my age, if a problem arises in the street, you immediately can see the Odu that's coming manifest, and you immediately know the solution. I was walking with my Baba down the street one day in Ode Rainbow, and we came to a bridge we needed to cross, and there was a dog standing at the entrance to the bridge, barking and snarling and looking vicious. The Arabah didn't even break stride. He bent down, he picked up a handful of dirt, he marked an Odu in the dirt, he blew the dirt in the dog's face, the dog rolled over and took a nap. In other words,
the dog took a nap, but he put the Odu in his hand and the dog and blew it in the dog's face and took a nap?
Yes. And so the point is that if you're able to see the world as problem and solution manifesting simultaneously, that eliminates all stress, and you're able to lead a life of what's called inner peace or suru. And inner peace is the whole point of Iwa Pele, and Odu Ifa is the instruction manual on how to access inner peace. People think it's fortune telling. People think it's get what you want. People think it's appeasing angry gods by feeding them blood. It's not any of those things. Divination is a textbook for developing good character. Good character is the process of learning to live in alignment with your environment. Living in alignment with your environment is the ability to access inner peace. Inner peace is the doorway to your creativity, your joy, and your unconditional love.
Now, real quick, I got like some pushback when we talked about like that, the Yoruba came from the Nile Valley culture.
I did not say that. Stop. I did not say that. I said
no. I didn't say what you said. I'm saying I said because I was taught this by Yoruba people that said they came from like the Nile Valley, Sudan. People from people from Africa here that are Yoruba told me that they came from Sudan, and then they migrated from the lower Nile Valley into Ile Ife. And that is where that's why you have like that connection to Egypt. But then I got like a lot of pushback on that.
Pushback from who?
Some scholars that I like were talking about.
And who cares? Listen, I've talked to the Obas of Nigeria who all say the same story, but they also say that Yoruba culture has two origin stories, one from Ile Ife and one from Oyo. The Ile Ife origin story is about the original people in what we now call Nigeria. The Oyo origin story is about a migration from Egypt. Here's a concept that people that complain about this and say, no, don't seem to be able to understand. Cultures merge and create something new. So we had an indigenous African culture merge with a migrating culture from Egypt and creating the system of Ifa in its present form. That's not hard to figure out unless you have some dog in the fight and want to exclude Egypt from the thesis. And the reason for excluding Egypt seems to be based on issues of skin color, and I pray that one day we can get past that.
Great answer. And then I think there was one last other like thing I wanted to bring, witchcraft. Like when we talk about like the whole thing about Ifa and witchcraft, like, okay, we're not contacting spirits. This is it spirits? Are we contacting spirits?
What's the question? Let's start here. Witchcraft is a colonialist word developed by the Catholic Church to denigrate women who were healers. The word witch in ancient European language means wise woman. So what's wrong with being a witch? The answer is nothing. It's only been denigrated when the Catholic Church said women were evil. So witchcraft would be a good thing. The truth is, what is the Yoruba word for witch? There is no such word. What we have is words for women who are healers, mediums. It's all related to the color symbolism of Iya Mio Sharonga. The word gay means female power. The word Ga means external female power. You go to God to receive gay, and then gay is then transformed into healing the word. Hence the word gele, meaning the head wrap that a woman wears, but it also means the house of female power. Hello. Gele Fun means the house of female power that is rooted in white light of transformation and elevation. Gede, which is the Yoruba word for astrology, means female power arises, stands up, becomes manifest. Galede, which is the female secret society that deals with gender issues. Galede means female power. The house of female power stands up. So I don't see any negative pejorative concepts in any of those traditional Yoruba words that refer to women's power.
Shay, wow. Thank you. Man, this is beautiful what you've done. Nyla, did you have any more questions? Because we're we have been go ahead. It's been 2 hours. I'm not gonna wear you down because I know we're gonna come back here again in a week. Question, go ahead, Nyla.
So it is said that all creation of anything is built on sound. I don't know how true that is, but if it is so, does that mean that binary codes are frequencies or sounds?
Absolutely. Everything you just said is what Ifa says. That's the reason why every spiritual tradition that I know of starts with the phrase in the beginning was the word. Frequency generates light. Light generates what we call a particle. A particle creates the physical world. And the physical world is a manifestation of consciousness. So it's all sound we're talking about. So if you didn't, the world around us looks different than it actually is. The world around us is a series of sine waves generated by sound, and it's the ability of the eye to piece those vibrations together to make the world look like it does. Ifa calls that ability to transform sound waves into physical reality. They call it Ipin. That's the power of the eye to transform reality. That's why Ebo is just about changing the frequency. Then you change your vision. Then you change what the world around you looks like. That's what EA spoke of after her automobile accident. That was a manifestation of Ipan, the ability of vision as an expression of co-creation and of consciousness to elevate and shift the reality that we live in. And so if you don't realize you have that power, you won't work it. And so people stay stuck in petty arguments and hostility and trying to be a bully and all kinds of nonsense. But we have unbelievable power to do anything we want. We just need to join hands, understand the process, and put it to work.
So when a binary code becomes distorted, can it be healed or restored by frequency?
Yeah, I explained that earlier. I might not have been clear.
No, I actually dropped line. I was in an area where the service wasn't good. So
I'm going to show you what I mean. Are you ready? Are you sitting down? Tell me about yourself. What do you do in the world?
Well, I'm a nurse, and
Good for you.
yeah.
That's healing work. That's IFA work.
Mm-hmm.
It
And I
tells me
study IFA. Yeah.
it tells me you're pretty smart.
Love IFA. Actually, IFA has changed my life.
This is Ogun. This is mine too. This is Ogun Demeji. This is the problem. You did divination. What's the problem? Ogun Demeji. And that means you need to clear away obstacles. The solution is Okanron Meji, which means take your life in a new direction. Hello? This problem is solved by this solution. That's resonance. That's a resonance addressing. And so when you mix the two odors together, the result is always
Ogbe Major?
yes, which is perfect harmony, elevation of consciousness.
I know that. I said that before you even showed. I said if you do this, whatever, okay, Ogbe. Right. You fix it all, Ogbe. Yes.
Absolutely. And there's no exception ever. So I call it EJ Ogbe consciousness, in which all the frequencies of creation are perfectly balanced, creating a state of inner peace. But EJ Ogbe also negates gravity, which means it gives you the ability to detach your consciousness from your physical body. In Ifa, that's called Osho, or astral travel.
Wow. Man, this has been a great live. We have learned so much here, and I don't want to even listen. It's at 2:05. We have more to learn. You know, how do you feel, sir, Baba?
You wanted to keep talking? Is that what you're saying?
No, I said no. We're not gonna you know what? I think we've learned a lot today. People need to step away and take that information, and then the next time we come, if there's any more questions, bring your questions. But I think it's very clear what this whole thing is. So,
but yeah, listen, if you could do me one last favor, next week we will talk about invoking possession by the spirit of Allah, why that's done, why that's important, how we use that process, what it means to be possessed by Allah as a priest of Ifa. Can you put on my group page so people can watch for the different lectures and things I'm doing, including your program? That's Egbe Iwa Pele Ifa Orisha Community, all in caps.
all right, let me delete something. Got so much things going on. Okay.
Sorry. There we go.
Go ahead on Facebook and go ahead and check out his community.
No. Put Ifa in front of Orisha. And then put community as the last word.
Wait. Okay. Ifa. Right. So please support his community. Every week he does free divination lessons. Please join his community.
Right. Listen, here's why I'm asking for that. But Spirit is really pushing me to make sure that everybody can divine fully. We're in such crisis on the planet. We can't be fiddling around with who's worthy and who can afford it. I'm just teaching divination as it was taught to me. I'm making it available for the next, it'll be the next 6 weeks now. I've already done 2 weeks. After the 8 weeks of divination, I'm doing a course on how to do initiations. Every initiation done in IFA and Orisha, I'm charging for that. We'll talk about that more as we go along. But in order to take that class and get value out of it, you need to first have a strong foundation in divination, and I'm trying to provide that. I will do my best to provide that at no cost. People can contact me, inbox me with questions. They can come on any place I'm speaking. They can challenge what I'm saying if they want, as long as we remain civil about it and as long as we speak to each other as friends. And we need to provide an alternative to whatever this nonsense is that's going on in Washington. People are dying. People are denigrating each other. People are suffering needlessly. We can join hands. We can create free energy. We can create free travel. We can create amazing healing. We can do all kinds of things other than try and bully each other. That's a waste of time. I have no interest in that. So, are we good?
Yes, we are. It's been a beautiful live. Thank you so much.
Let me close out by saying, stay safe, be well, know that you're loved and appreciated. We'll talk again. Ire Asheto.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place.